"Excuse me, your daughter needs to go inside and change. That dress violates the guidelines." Melissa Trent was on my lawn with her clipboard, teal blazer too crisp for a Saturday morning. The sprinklers hissed behind her, throwing mist across my driveway. Nora, 7 and sunbright in a yellow sundress, froze by the walkway with a jump rope. I set the box of tile down. "She's playing at our house, Melissa." Her smile stayed polite and empty. Section 4.3, public attire must be modest and appropriate. No thin straps, no exposed backs. "It's a kid's dress." "I'm trying to help you avoid another fine," she said, clicking her pen. "Your lot is already on notice." Nora's voice was tiny. "Daddy, am I in trouble?" "Hey, no." I stepped in front of her. "Go sit on the porch swing a second." Melissa leaned around me. "Sweetie, we don't show ourselves like that here. Go inside and put on something with sleeves." "Talk to me," I said. "Don't lecture my child." Melissa's nostrils flared. "Then parent her. The board is firm." A breeze came down the street. Nora turned to go inside, and the back of her dress slipped as her hair lifted. The pale, rope-thin scars on her back, uneven ridges from her shoulder blades to her waist, caught the light. Melissa went still. Her pen froze in midair. For one thick second, all I could hear was sprinkler spray and my own blood thumping. "What happened to her?" she whispered. I felt my jaw lock. "That's not your business." Her eyes dropped to the clipboard. I didn't mean anything. I'm enforcing rules. Please have her cover up. Today." Nora tucked herself behind my leg. "Fine," I said. "We'll go inside, but you don't speak to my daughter like she's a violation. Ever." Melissa straightened. "I'll note your non-compliance and the incident. Expect a hearing." She pivoted and marched down the sidewalk. Across the street, Darius Cole stood at his mailbox, pretending to sort junk mail while watching everything. When I met his eyes, he flinched and lifted a hand. I watched Melissa disappear around the corner, my hands shaking now that the adrenaline cracked. If an HOA officer can shame your kid on your own driveway, what comes next? Tell me what you do, then subscribe, because this is where Cedar Ridge learned I don't fold quietly. Let me back up and tell you how this started. 3 years earlier, I'd moved into Cedar Ridge Estates after my discharge, looking for quiet for my wife, Elena, and our little girl. I'm a licensed contractor now. Bathrooms, kitchens, the kind of work you can finish and stand back from. The neighborhood promised safety, matching mailboxes, trimmed hedges, and a giant oak at the entrance holding a wooden sign that said, "Welcome home." The HOA seemed harmless at first. A thick rules packet, a lemonade meet and greet. Melissa was just the organized neighbor then, quoting covenants, like scripture. Then came the fire. Elena took Nora to her sister's for a weekend, while I stayed to redo our bathroom. I remember thin set on my hands, the fan rattling in the window, and the space heater I'd plugged in because the tile was cold. A spark, a whoosh, smoke rolling faster than my brain could catch up. Elena and Nora came home early for a forgotten stuffed rabbit. Nora ran inside ahead of her mom. I heard her scream and saw the hallway flare like a furnace. I got her out, but not before the heat chewed through her skin. The surgeon said, non-life-threatening. Skin grafts, months of bandages. A brave kid learning to sleep on her side because her back couldn't touch the sheets. When we finally returned, Cedar Ridge had a new problem. Not the char on my siding or the repair trucks in my drive. The problem, apparently, was what tragedy looked like from the curb. 2 days after we moved back in, a certified letter from the board waited under that oak sign's shadow. It wasn't asking if Nora was okay. It was a violation, unsightly repairs, construction debris, and a warning about visible medical dressings. I read it twice, sure I'd misunderstood. By Monday, the smoke smell had faded, but the violation letter stayed on our kitchen table. Elena read it twice, thumb circling the line about visible medical dressings. "They're fining us for her bandages?" she asked. I set my mug down. "They're fining us for surviving." Nora sat in the living room with her dolls, shoulders tucked inside a soft t-shirt. Even after weeks home, she still moved carefully. She kept peeking over, checking our faces like trouble was about to land. I called the management company. After 3 menus, a tired woman answered, and I explained the fire, the repairs, the grafts. "I'm sorry, sir," she said. "The board enforces the covenants. You can appeal Thursday, 7 p.m. at the clubhouse." The next 2 days proved it wasn't a one-off. A neon tag appeared on my trash bin because it sat 30 inches past curb line. Another letter warned that my temporary plywood patch on the garage was non-conforming color. On Wednesday, while Nora and I chalk drew hopscotch on the drive, Melissa's golf cart slowed beside us. She didn't wave. She just snapped a photo of Nora's shirt riding up as she jumped, then drove on. Nora noticed and stopped jumping, clutching the chalk. Thursday night was warm and still. The clubhouse behind the pool glowed under string lights. Elena stayed home with Nora. Sitting upright still hurt her. I went alone, boots dusty from work, holding the permit binder for our rebuild. Melissa Trent was at the folding table, gavel and clipboard aligned like tools. 2 board members flanked her. Darius Cole sat against the wall, arms crossed so tight his knuckles blanched. Melissa lifted her eyes. "Mr. Mercer, state your appeal." "We had a house fire," I said. "My daughter was burned. We're repairing what insurance covers. Your letter fines us for debris and for her medical bandages. That can't stand." One board member adjusted his glasses. "The covenants don't list medical exceptions. They don't list child burn care either." Melissa tapped her pen. Section 9.1 gives discretion over visible nuisances. Repairs and medical items impact appearance. "Her bandages aren't items," I said. "They're on her body." Darius shifted, eyes flicking to Melissa, then down. Melissa slid a paper toward me. "Compromise. Keep materials behind a privacy screen, no visible equipment, and ensure your daughter is fully covered outdoors until repairs are complete. We'll pause additional fines if you comply." The words hit like grit in my teeth. "You're telling me to hide my kid." "We're asking for consistency," she said. "Rules apply to everyone." I opened my binder. "Then read all the rules. Section 7.4 requires reasonable accommodation for disability or medical need. It doesn't limit to ramps. You can't fine a family for visible medical care." One of the board guys glanced at the page. "Melissa?" Her jaw tightened. "Council interprets that narrowly." "Show the council letter." She clicked the gavel. "Appeal denied, fine stand, next agenda item." Heat climbed my neck. "So you won't consider your own covenants?" "Meeting is over for you, Mr. Mercer." I stood a second longer, waiting for anyone to object. No one did. People stared at phones or shoes. Darius half rose, then sat back down like his legs forgot. Outside, pool lights turned the water to broken silver. I crossed the courtyard, trying to keep my breathing even. Darius jogged after me, catching up under the oaks. "Jake," he said quietly, "I'm sorry. She shouldn't talk about your girl like that. You saw it. Why stay quiet?" He glanced at the clubhouse windows. I pushed back once. "She fined me for disruptive conduct and told folks I was unstable. Nobody helped. I'm still paying it." "That's not due process." He gave a dry laugh. "In Cedar Ridge, Melissa is the process." He walked off, shoulders tight, like he was carrying something heavy. I watched him go, then looked toward the entrance oak and its welcome home sign. Melissa wasn't enforcing rules. She was twisting them, counting on fear to keep everyone silent. I'd rebuilt houses for a living. I knew when something was framed crooked, and I was done letting her frame my family. The next morning, I was up before sunrise with the covenant spread across the kitchen table like a blueprint. The fridge hummed and the clock ticked while I traced the enforcement section again and again. A contractor's mind likes sequences. Who signs, who notices, who appeals. Last night's hearing hadn't followed any of it. Elena came in wrapped in one of my old academy hoodies. "You're trying to fix the HOA? Before breakfast," she said. "I'm trying to keep them off Nora's back." "Try not to let her feel this," she murmured, glancing toward the hallway. Nora shuffled in right then, rabbit tucked under her arm. The graph sights made her move careful. "Daddy, are we in trouble with the lady again?" I knelt. "No, Bug, grown-ups are being weird. You worry about cartoons." She nodded, but her shoulders stayed high. By 10, my phone had 2 automated voicemails. Payment due, late fees pending. I went out to load lumber anyway. As I pulled into the driveway, an orange tag flapped on my front door. I tore it down. Violation. Unapproved temporary structure. Description. Privacy screen erected without architectural approval. Fine. $150 per day. I stared at my yard. No screen, just sawhorses and a stack of drywall under a tarp. Across the street, Darius was watering his lawn. When he saw the tag, he froze mid-spray, hose sagging so water pooled around his sneakers. He started toward me, then stopped as a white SUV crawled by. The window was down. Melissa's voice floated out, bright as a blade. "Morning, Darius. Everything looking compliant today?" Darius straightened like a kid in class. "Yes, ma'am. All good." The SUV rolled on. Darius dropped the hose and dragged in a breath. I crossed the street. "Did she put that on my door?" I asked. His jaw worked. A muscle in his cheek jumped. "I didn't see the exact moment." "Darius." He rubbed the back of his neck, fingers shaking. "I saw her stop around 7. She walked up with a stapler, that's all. So she fined me for a screen I don't have, after ordering me to hide materials." He winced. "She's building a file. She wants you to look defiant." "Then I'm done looking cooperative." His head snapped up. "Jake, don't." The words rushed out. "When people push back, she escalates. She makes examples." "Like the Parkers?" His shoulders folded inward. "They fought a landscaping fine. Then she hit them for parking, lights, their kid's bike. They sold at a loss." "That's intimidation." He stared toward the clubhouse. I saw his hesitation physically. Weight rocking heel to toe, hands clenching, eyes darting like he expected Melissa to reappear. Then he leaned closer, voice dropping. "She's not just strict," he said. "She's skimming." My anger cooled into focus. "What are you talking about?" "I do bookkeeping," he whispered. "I used to help the board with budgets. The numbers stopped lining up. Vendor costs doubled. One company kept winning contracts even with higher bids." "Which company?" He bit his lip hard enough to bleach it. "Trent Property Solutions." The name sat heavy. "Her family? Cousin? Something? She pushed a rule change for emergency aesthetic remediation without member votes. Then she calls everything an emergency and hires him. We pay, they profit. And complaints get buried under fines." He nodded once. "That's why people stay quiet." "Why you stayed quiet?" His eyes flicked to his front window. "My mom's on oxygen, tanks by the couch. If Melissa decides that's unsightly medical equipment, I can't afford a fight." I pictured his mom, tubing looping near the curtains. "Okay," I said softly. "We don't fight alone, we fight smart." "How?" he asked. "I document every fake violation. I pull the financials she's hiding. I make her walk into her own trap." He let out a breath he'd been holding and gave me a thin, terrified smile. "If you can prove the money piece, I'll stand with you." I folded the orange tag. "Then that's step 1. She wants a file? I'll build a better one." He nodded, and for the first time since the fire, the street didn't feel like enemy territory, not even for long. I spent that evening doing what I do on job sites when something feels off, measure twice, assume nothing. I pulled a legal pad from my truck and started a timeline. Every letter, every tag, every time Melissa's cart slowed in front of our house. Dates, times, photos. I labeled a folder Cedar Ridge Evidence and backed it up like a client contract. After Nora fell asleep, Elena found me at the table with the laptop open and the covenants beside it. "You're hunting," she said quietly. "I'm verifying," I told her. "If she's falsifying violations, there'll be a pattern. If she's skimming, there'll be paper." Elena squeezed my shoulder. "Just don't let it swallow you." "It already tried," I said. "I'm not letting it finish." The HOA portal was a clunky site, but it had budgets and minutes. Melissa had said council interprets that narrowly, and I wanted to see who council was. The minutes were scanned PDFs, half crooked, like someone wanted them unread. Still, numbers don't care about crooked scans. I downloaded 3 years of financials and opened the same estimating spreadsheet I use for kitchens. Line items are line items whether they're cabinets or community mulch. I compared cost per yard, labor hours, frequency. By midnight, a heat map of red cells bloomed across my screen. Landscaping, $5,000 a month. Reasonable. Emergency aesthetic remediation. 18,000 step on 50, twice in 1 quarter. Fence stain refresh. $42,000. Billed as urgent after storm damage on a week with no storms. Vendor, Trent Property Solutions. My pulse slowed into that deliberate thump it gets when I find rot behind drywall. You can't unsee it. At 1:07 a.m., I clicked the vendor's name. The portal showed an invoice list. No attachments, just totals. Every emergency bill was the same round amount. No breakdown, no units. Real work is messy. It has receipts and hours and imperfect math. This looked like someone copying a number into a box. I printed everything. Friday morning, I drove to the county clerk's, in office before my first site visit. The place smelled of hot asphalt and old paper. Fluorescent lights hummed over rows of computers. I asked for Cedar Ridge HOA filings and vendor contracts. The clerk, a woman with silver braids, raised an eyebrow. "You a board member?" "Homeowner," I said. "We're entitled to records." She slid a form across the counter. "Most HOAs forget you can." 2 hours later, I had a stack: annual reports, bylaw amendments, and a conflict of interest disclosure signed by Melissa Trent. My hands went cold as I read the last page. She had checked "No" next to "Do you or a relative have a financial interest in any vendor doing business with the association?" Trent Property Solutions was listed as preferred emergency vendor that same year. I snapped a photo and texted it to Darius with one line: "Found it." He called as I walked back to my truck. His voice was tight. "That's huge." "It's a governance violation at least," I said. "Maybe worse. Either way, it's leverage. But if you go straight at her, she'll retaliate." "Not if I make her follow the rules she weaponizes," I said. "We use procedure." That afternoon, another letter arrived. Hand-delivered, no postmark. Violation, unpermitted vehicle. It cited my work van parked in my driveway more than 2 consecutive hours. Fine. $75 per hour until removed. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. She was escalating to force me into a corner. She wanted me angry, sloppy, reactive. Instead, I called the management company. "I'm requesting a formal records inspection under Section 12(2), I said, steady. "All bids, contracts, and invoices from Trent Property Solutions, plus board communications approving emergency work. I'm disputing today's violation as fraudulent." The woman on the line paused. "Okay, I'll notify the board. By email, today." I hung up and felt something settle inside me. Not calm, clarity. When someone builds a crooked wall, you don't scream at it. You pull out your level and make them look at the bubble. If she ignored it, I'd take it to the members, then the county, and let daylight do the rest once and for all. And Melissa was about to see it. Melissa didn't wait for my records request to land. She struck first Saturday morning when the street was drowsy and the air smelled like sunscreen and cut grass. I was on a ladder replacing soffit panels when her SUV stopped at my curb. 2 people climbed out with her, Mark Feldman from security, and a man in a polo with Trent Property Solutions stitched over his chest. "Mr. Mercer," Melissa called, shading her eyes. "We're here about emergency remediation." I climbed down slow, boots thudding the rungs. "What emergency?" She motioned to my front yard like unveiling a crime scene. "Construction materials visible from the street. Hazardous, non-compliant. We're correcting it today." The polo guy, Brent, according to the badge on his belt, walked toward my drywall stack. "Stop," I said. Melissa's lips tightened. "You don't have authority to stop an HOA contractor. I'm the homeowner. That material is mine. You can't touch it without written notice and a hearing. Section 9.3. Her eyes flicked, annoyed that I knew the number. "This qualifies as an emergency under the amended covenant. We notified you Thursday." "Thursday you denied my appeal. You never served an emergency notice." Mark shifted his weight, avoiding my face. Brent crouched by my tarp anyway. "We're just gonna haul it to storage, man." "It's insured and permitted," I said. "You remove it, you're trespassing. I'll call the sheriff." Melissa exhaled, practiced. "Go ahead. The sheriff won't interfere with association business." I pulled my phone out and dialed. "Non-emergency line, please." Melissa stepped closer, smile returning. "You're being dramatic, Jake. We're trying to keep property values stable. Property values don't come from bullying burn victims." Her smile cracked. "Don't twist this into a sympathy campaign." A deputy arrived 20 minutes later, tan uniform and tired eyes. He listened while Melissa gave a clipped summary about covenant enforcement. I handed him my permit binder and the covenants with bookmarks. "Deputy," I said, "they're trying to seize my property without process. There's no paper notice and no hearing." He read the page. "Ma'am, he's right about notice. Unless there's an immediate safety issue, you can't remove private property. Melissa blinked, thrown off. But I'm the association president. That doesn't override the law, he said. You want to enforce, you do it through civil channels. Brent straightened, hands up. We're just following work order. The deputy pointed at the sidewalk. Leave the lot, now. They did, but Melissa paused on my driveway, voice low. You're making enemies you can't afford, she said. I met her stare. You're making invoices you can't defend. She stiffened, then climbed into the SUV. After the deputy left, Darius crossed over, gaze on the road like he was sneaking out past curfew. You okay? I'm good, I said, though my forearms still buzzed. She showed up with Trent's cousin. That's proof of coordination. He nodded. People saw this. Good, I said. Let them see her overreach. Across the street, Mrs. Patel had stayed by her roses, broom forgotten. When our eyes met, she gave a small, conflicted nod, like she'd been waiting to see who blinked first. The Howards' garage door inched up, then stopped, listening before sliding shut again, in silence. Nora peeked from the door, rabbit under her chin. Daddy, are they gone? Yeah, bug. They're gone. She ran to me carefully and hugged my waist. Over her head, I caught Darius's expression, fear with a new thread of hope. That evening, the management company emailed a thin response. The board would consider my records request within 30 days. 30 days was an eternity while fines stacked. I wrote back, citing the state statute on HOA record access and giving them 5 business days. Then, I printed a flyer, Cedar Ridge homeowners meeting. Topic, emergency vendor spending and due process. Sunday, 4 p.m., under the entrance oak. I taped it to mailboxes up and down the block. People didn't slam doors on me. Some nodded. A few whispered, about time. When I got home, Elena read the flyer and looked up with worry and pride. Are you sure? She asked. I'm sure, I said. If she wants emergencies, I'll give her one she can't hide. Sunday showed up bright and windless. The street felt hold-your-breath quiet. I set 2 folding chairs under the entrance oak, the welcome home sign creaking above us. The bark was stippled with old staple scars from lost cat posters and yard sale ads. Today, that tree was my stage. Darius came first, slow, hands shoved in his hoodie pockets. He carried a manila envelope tight to his ribs. I printed what I could, he said. Public stuff. But look, inside were portal screenshots and a spreadsheet he'd made late last night. Every emergency payout was boxed in red. You sure you want to stand out here? I asked. He swallowed. If I don't, she wins forever. By 4, people drifted over in 2s and 3s. Mrs. Patel crossed the street still wearing gardening gloves. The Dolphins cap guy from Lot 9 leaned on a stroller. 2 teens rolled up on bikes and tried to look bored. Some stayed at the edges, half hidden behind open garages. I stood. Thanks for coming. I'm Jake Mercer, Lot 17. I'm not here to start drama. I'm here because our HOA is charging us for emergencies that don't exist and fining families without due process. A few heads lifted. Someone muttered, about time. I held up my packet. I estimate jobs for a living. Real work doesn't come as neat round numbers with no scope, no labor list, no materials. But that's what we've been billed. I passed pages around. Mrs. Patel squinted. Fence stain refresh, she said. My brother stains fences. It's not 42,000. And it's marked storm emergency, I added. There was no storm that week. A woman near the curb crossed her arms. Maybe they're just sloppy. Maybe, I said. So I pulled the conflict of interest form our president signed. I flipped to the last page. Melissa Trent declared no relatives had financial ties to vendors. Trent Property Solutions is her family's company, and it's getting every emergency contract. Low chatter spread. A guy whistled. Darius stepped forward, voice shaking. I helped with budgets 2 years ago. When I asked why Trent kept getting contracts, I got cited for disruptive conduct. That was my warning shot. Silence settled after he said it. Our bylaws say 10% of homeowners can demand a special meeting, I went on. 32 signatures forces an independent audit and a vote on emergency vendor rules. I brought a petition. I laid the clipboard on the chair. One by one, people approached. Some signed fast. Others hovered, eyes darting up the street. A white SUV slid into view, too slow to be casual. Melissa parked by the oak and watched through the windshield. Shoulders tightened around me. I raised my voice. "You're not alone. She counts on you thinking you are. If she retaliates against one of us, she retaliates against all of us. And we document it." Melissa stepped out, sunglasses on, a smile pasted over steel. "Is this an unauthorized gathering?" she called. "It's a neighborhood conversation," I said. "Common area." "You're spreading misinformation," she said, walking closer. "Budgets are confidential. You're weaponizing them." "We are members," Mrs. Patel snapped, "and you're charging us for imaginary storms." A rumble of agreement followed. Melissa's smile flickered. "Your claims could be defamatory." "Then answer them at the special meeting we're requesting," I said, "in the open." She came close enough that I smelled her citrus perfume. "Jake, your family has been through enough. Don't make this worse." It sounded almost gentle. That was what scared me. I looked past her to our porch down the street. Nora sat on the swing beside Elena, yellow dress bright in the late sun, cardigan over her shoulders because she wanted it there. I turned back. "You already made it worse. We're just ending it." Her jaw went hard. She spun on her heel and stalked to her SUV, tires spitting gravel as she drove off. When she was gone, the line at the petition grew steadier. By sunset, I counted 41 signatures. Darius let out a shaky laugh. "What now?" "Now we file it tonight. Send copies to every homeowner and the county," I said. She wanted emergencies. She's about to meet the real one. We filed the petition that night from my kitchen table. The email whooshed out to management, every homeowner, and the county HOA address the clerk had given me. I hit send and sat back, waiting to see if the beam held. Monday answered fast. A black envelope was taped to my door beside a fresh orange tag. The tag cited harassment of board members and scheduled a hearing for Wednesday. The letter inside was a cease and desist from some attorney accusing me of malicious financial allegations, threatening damages if I didn't retract. Elena read it, lips pressed thin. "They're trying to scare you quiet." "I know," I said. "So we get sharper." At lunch, Darius texted, "Come by, now, no softening, just an address." His house smelled of antiseptic and tea, and oxygen. Concentrator hummed in the living room. His mom sat in a recliner by the window, blanket over her knees, game show on low volume. She waved at me like I was any neighbor dropping by. Darius pulled me into the spare room and shut the door. He looked wrecked, eyes red. "She came here last night," he said. "Melissa?" He nodded. "Said the petition was dangerous. Told me if I didn't publicly retract, she'd review my property for medical equipment visibility." My stomach dipped. "She threatened your mom." "Yeah." He dragged a breath. "After she left, I opened my old board box." He set a banker's box on the bed. "I kept copies when I resigned. I wasn't supposed to, but something felt wrong." On top sat a folder labeled Trent P.S. 2019-2021. He flipped it open to a resolution titled Emergency Aesthetic Remediation Amendment. The member vote line read, "Waived due to urgent threat to values." Under signatures were only board names, no homeowners. "That waiver isn't allowed," I said. "Bylaws require a community vote for new spending categories." "I know." She passed it in closed session and backdated the minutes. He slid over an email chain. In it, Melissa wrote she'd handle the amendment internally and homeowners don't need to be involved. Brent Trent replied with an attached standard emergency price sheet and a smiley face. Heat went cold in my chest. "This is it." "There's more." He pulled out full invoices. "These never got posted. Online we only see totals." The scopes were nonsense. 20 gallons of stain for a fence job that never happened. 50 labor hours for storm debris removal during a sunny week. Crew names were copy-pasted across different dates. It looked like the same template reused until it became truth by repetition. "You're sure these are real?" I asked. "I pulled them from the board Dropbox when I still had access," he said, voice shaking but stubborn. "If she's going after my mom, I'm done protecting her." I met his eyes. "You won't be alone in this." "How do we keep her from crushing you?" "First, we scan everything and store it off-site. Second, we law up before Wednesday. Third, we bring these to the special meeting and force an audit. If she retaliates, that's another record for the county. He blew out a breath like he'd been underwater. Okay, I'm with you. I drove straight to Luis Alvarez, a veteran services attorney who'd helped my platoon buddies with housing fights. His office was a suite above a taqueria, walls covered in flags and case notes. I dropped the box on his desk. He skimmed pages and whistled. This isn't HOA drama, this is fraud. And that cease and desist, a bluff. What's the play? We set a compliance trap, he said. At Wednesday's hearing, you stay calm. Demand they enter evidence on record. Ask who approved the emergency amendment and where. The homeowner vote is. You record the meeting. If they dodge procedure, we file for injunctive relief and send this packet to the DA and state HOA ombudsman. I felt my shoulders unclench. So, let them hang themselves. Exactly. They love rules. Make them live in them. Driving home, the neighborhood looked. Kids on scooters, sprinklers ticking, the oak sign throwing long shadows. But now I knew where the rot sat behind the paint, and I had the receipts to prove it. Wednesday arrived gray and humid, the kind of morning that makes arguments feel inevitable. Luis met me outside the clubhouse early, jacket over his arm, legal pad in hand. Calm, tidy, unhurried, exactly what I needed. Inside, folding tables formed a U, pitchers of water sweated onto coasters. Melissa sat in the center seat with her gavel and teal blazer. 2 board members beside her, Mark Feldman planted by the door. A handful of homeowners watched from the back. Mrs. Patel, the Dolphins' cap dad, and Darius, shoulders tight, hands locked together. Melissa's smile was for the room, not for me. This hearing concerns harassment and defamation by Mr. Mercer. Luis rose. Luis Alvarez, counsel for Mr. Mercer. We request this hearing be recorded and that minutes reflect all questions and answers. Our policy doesn't allow recording, Melissa said. Luis slid a bylaw sheet across the table. Article 5, Section 3, members may record hearings with notice. This is notice. A small ripple moved through the chairs. Melissa tapped her pen, then forced a nod. Fine. I set my phone on the table. The red dot glowed. Melissa opened a folder. Exhibit A, repeated violations, refusal to comply, and an unauthorized gathering that intimidated board members. Define harassment, Luis said. What specific act? He approached homeowners with inflammatory claims, she said. He accused the board of theft. And your basis for calling those claims untrue? Luis asked. Please enter the financial records you rely on. We're not obligated to disclose internal finances in a disciplinary hearing. Luis turned another page. State Statute 720.3003 gives members inspection rights on request. Mr. Mercer requested records. You delayed. Meanwhile, you fined him. That's retaliation. One board member cleared his throat. Melissa, did we respond on time? We're reviewing, she snapped. Luis nodded at me. Mr. Mercer, your questions. I kept my voice flat. What emergency justified Trent Property Solutions coming onto my lot Saturday? It was preventive remediation, Melissa said. Under which written emergency notice? She blinked. The amendment allows immediate action. Show the notice you served me, I said. Silence stretched. Luis leaned forward. Who approved the emergency amendment and when did homeowners vote on it? The board approved it in 2019, she said. Property values were at risk. That's not a vote. Bylaws require member approval for new spending categories. Show waiver authority. There was no time. Counsel advised it. Name counsel and produce the letter, Luis said. Melissa's jaw worked. We're not here to discuss vendor contracts. We are, Luis replied. Your defamation claim depends on whether his statements about self-dealing are true. Behind us, someone muttered, Answer him. Melissa shut the folder hard. This hearing is out of order. Then recess and reschedule with proper exhibits, Luis said. Or proceed and answer. Her cheeks flushed. Proceed. Mr. Mercer will cease distributing misinformation and pay accumulated fines totaling $2,475 by Friday. And if I don't, I asked, we'll place a lien, then foreclosure, if necessary. The word landed like a slap. A woman in the back gasped. Luis spoke low but sharp. Threatening foreclosure while withholding records is coercion. We will file for injunctive relief tomorrow. If retaliation continues, we'll seek personal liability for board members under Section 6 Bastanin A or 834. Melissa's confidence wavered. Personal liability? Fraud voids indemnification, Luis said. So does willful violation of bylaws. The board members shifted. One stared at his water cup. The other looked at Melissa like he'd just noticed the cliff behind her. Mark took a half step away from the door. Melissa banged the gavel. Hearing concluded. Determination will be sent in writing. Luis gathered his papers. I stood, feeling the room tilt a degree in our direction. As we walked out, homeowners clustered and whispered. Darius caught up in the hallway, voice shaking. She didn't have anything, he said. Not on the record, I answered. I heard the entrance oak creak in my mind, reminding me this neighborhood belonged to us again. Outside, warm rain began to fall, pattering on the pavement. Through the glass doors, I saw Melissa still seated, staring down at her shut folder like it had betrayed her. Tomorrow, we'd trade questions for consequences. Thursday morning, I filed the injunction before coffee. Luis had drafted it clean and sharp. Emergency amendment passed without a vote. Conflict of interest form falsified. Retaliation through fines and foreclosure threats. We attached the hearing audio, my records request, and a sampling of the emergency invoices Darius had saved. The clerk stamped it with a dull thunk that sounded like a door locking. As we walked out, Luis said, "Now we control tempo. Court deadlines beat HOA deadlines every time." By noon, the portal showed a new fee. Legal review cost $600. Melissa was charging us for fighting her. I screen captured it and sent it to Luis. He replied, "Perfect." That evening, Darius came over after dark, backpack slung on one shoulder. "She's going door to door," he said, "telling people you're trying to bankrupt the association. Let her. We're not arguing in kitchens. We're arguing in daylight." He unzipped the bag and pulled out a USB drive. I got back into the board Dropbox. I didn't ask how. "What did you find?" "Two things. First, a group chat between Melissa and Brent Trent. Second, a draft of next month's agenda." He opened his laptop. The chat thread was a river of casual arrogance. Brent, "Need another emergency line item?" Melissa, "Yes, fence again, same as last time. Round it to 20K. Another text. "If Mercer keeps pushing, lean him fast. People fall in line once they see that." My skin went cold. "Save it. Screenshots, backups, timestamps." I did. He tapped the drive. "Everything's mirrored." "And the agenda?" He clicked a PDF. Item 4 read, "Motion to authorize immediate removal of visible medical apparatus impacting aesthetics." With examples. Oxygen tanks, mobility devices, wound care supplies. My mouth went dry. "She's targeting your mom." He nodded. "Calling it a community standard. Then we stop it before it hits the floor." "How?" "We force the special meeting first. Our petition clock started Sunday. Management has 10 days to schedule it. If they stall, that's another breach. And with this agenda draft, we can show intent to discriminate." He rubbed his face. "What if she rushes it through anyway?" "Not if enough people show up to vote it down or to vote her out." We spread the petition list on the table. 41 signatures, but signatures weren't bodies. We needed turnout. I started calling while Darius texted. Mrs. Patel promised to bring 3 neighbors. Dolphins Cap Dad said his wife would come too. The Howards hesitated, then said, "We'll be there if it's really about money." I told them it was also about oxygen. At 9, I walked to the entrance oak with a stapler and fresh flyers. Special meeting demand. Stop emergency fraud. Stop medical discrimination. Wind rattled the leaves overhead. I taped them to every mailbox again, adding in marker, "Bring a friend. Bring your questions." A couple of porch lights snapped on as I worked. Mrs. Patel opened her door and stepped onto her walk, robe pulled tight. "I signed," she said softly, "and I'll speak if they let me." Behind her, her husband hovered in the doorway, wary but listening. Down the block, someone peeled a flyer off, read it, then carried it inside instead of crumpling it. Little shifts, but I felt them like nails sinking straight into solid wood at last. Back home, Elena was on the couch with Nora asleep against her chest, rabbit wedged under a cheek. "Still fighting?" she whispered. "Yeah." Elena's eyes slid to Nora's back, hidden under her pajama top. I hate that her scars became your battle. They're the reason I refuse to be bullied in front of her again, I said. She squeezed my hand. Just make sure the neighborhood sees her as a little girl, not an exhibit. They will, I promised. Before bed, Luis called. We got a hearing date, temporary restraining order conference Monday at 10. Good. Management finally scheduled your special meeting. Tuesday night. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the next week line up like dominoes. Court first, community second. Procedure against intimidation. Evidence against spin. And somewhere in the middle, Melissa's agenda about medical apparatus. She'd written her cruelty down. Now we'd read it aloud. Monday's restraining order conference wasn't cinematic. It was fluorescent and quiet, where power hides in paperwork. Luis and I waited outside Judge Larkin's chambers. Melissa arrived with a new lawyer. Thin suit, thinner smile, and navy instead of teal, like a costume change could reset Saturday. Inside was a small round-table room. Judge Larkin, gray-haired and brisk, motioned us down. Mr. Mercer, you want enforcement frozen. Why? Luis slid our packet forward. The board is acting beyond authority and in retaliation. We have evidence of undisclosed conflicts, sole source emergency contracts, and foreclosure threats while records are withheld. The judge read in silence. Melissa tapped her foot. Ms. Trent, Judge Larkin said, did homeowners vote on this emergency spending amendment? Melissa's lawyer opened his mouth. The judge held up a hand. Ms. Trent, no, Your Honor. And did you disclose your relationship to Trent Property Solutions? He's a cousin by marriage. I didn't think it counted. Repeated contracts to a relative count, the judge said, especially without a member vote. Luis leaned in. We request a temporary order blocking liens or fines tied to the Mercer's repairs and barring any rule targeting visible medical equipment until a full hearing. Melissa's lawyer called it internal. Judge Larkin didn't blink. Internal disputes don't justify foreclosure threats, she said. Temporary order granted for the Mercers and any medical apparatus rule changes. Records produced in 5 business days. Full hearing in 3 weeks. Melissa went rigid. Your Honor, this is not optional. Outside, Luis exhaled. That order is your shield for tomorrow. Tomorrow's about the neighborhood, I said. Tuesday night came hot and electric. The clubhouse lot overflowed. People who usually watched from behind blinds showed up in sandals and work shirts. Darius stood by the door, guiding his mom in her wheelchair. Her oxygen concentrator hummed beside her. Melissa sat at the front table again with her gavel, but it looked smaller now. A county mediator, Ms. Carver, typed at a laptop. This is a special meeting under Bylaw Section 3.7, Ms. Carver announced. Purpose, emergency vendor spending and proposed rule changes, member statements. First, I stood. The room settled. I'm Jake Mercer, Lot 17. I'm not here to torch the HOA. Emergency contracts went to the president's relatives company without a homeowner vote. When I asked questions, my family was fined and threatened. I have records, and the court ordered more released. Tonight I'm asking for an independent audit and a freeze on emergency vendor authority until that audit is done. I passed copies down the aisles. Murmurs rose at the round invoices and missing scopes. Mrs. Patel spoke next. We pay dues for maintenance, not for a family business. A man near the back said, Why are we billed for storms that never happened? Melissa clicked her pen. Order. Darius rolled his mom forward. His hands shook on the microphone, but his voice didn't. My mother needs oxygen, he said. The draft agenda calls her tanks an aesthetic nuisance. That isn't standards. That's cruelty. If this passes, you're telling sick neighbors to hide. His mom raised a thin hand. I won't hide. Applause cracked through the room. I saw Nora beside Elena along the wall, clapping too. Yellow dress bright under the lights. Neighbors I'd never met before nodded at her, and something protective spread through the room, like warmth too, quietly. Ms. Carver turned to Melissa. Response? Melissa stood, face flushed. Trent Property Solutions provides rapid service. The amendment was necessary. Mr. Mercer has harassed this board. A woman in the third row shot back. You harassed his child. Ms. Carver lifted her palm. We'll vote. First motion? Independent audit of finances for the last 3 years. Hands flew up. Motion passes. Second motion, suspend emergency aesthetic remediation and freeze contracts pending audit. Another sea of hands. Passes. Third motion, censure of the president for non-disclosure and procedural violations. The vote was closer but clear. Passes. Melissa's mouth tightened. This is a coup. No, Mrs. Patel said, standing straight. It's accountability. As the room buzzed, I looked at Nora again. She wasn't shrinking. She was watching, curious, safe. For the first time since the fire, Cedar Ridge felt like a neighborhood, not a tribunal. The audit vote stripped Melissa of the gavel's magic, but she wasn't done. People filed out to the parking lot in noisy knots, talking like they'd been holding their breath for years. Elena and Nora came to my side, Nora's hand sliding into mine. You were brave, Nora whispered. So were you, I said, kissing the top of her head. A shout cut through the night. Melissa stood by the clubhouse steps, phone in hand, her lawyer beside her. Nobody leaves, she snapped. This meeting was improperly conducted. Those votes are void. Ms. Carver, the mediator, stepped down from the doorway. Ms. Trent, the meeting met quorum and followed. I bylaws. Melissa ignored her. I'm calling security. This is harassment. Mark Feldman, who'd been lurking by his sedan, looked miserable. Melissa, maybe... Do it, she hissed. Mark pulled out his radio, but before he could speak, 2 county vehicles rolled into the lot. Lights weren't flashing, but the presence was unmistakable. A woman in a navy blazer and a man with a tablet got out. Ms. Carver raised a hand to them. County HOA Ombudsman Office, the blazer woman said, loud enough for the lot. We received a complaint and a copy of tonight's motions. We're here to observe and collect records. The air seemed to tilt. People stopped mid-conversation. Melissa blinked fast. This is internal business. You can't just show up. We can, the ombudsman said calmly. Under state statute, we investigate procedural violations and retaliation. We also have a court order from Judge Larkin requiring record production within 5 business days. Do you have a compliance plan? Melissa's lawyer stepped forward. We're reviewing... Are you counsel of record for the association? The man with the tablet asked. Yes, he said. Then you're now on notice that failure to produce may constitute contempt, the man replied. A low whoa rippled through the crowd like wind through reeds. I caught Darius's eye. His shoulders were still tense, but his jaw was set in a new way. Something like relief. Melissa lifted her chin. You're all being manipulated by a disgruntled homeowner. A voice from behind me said, We're being manipulated by you. It was Dolphin's Cap Dad, stepping closer. You threatened foreclosure on a family that had a house fire. Mrs. Patel added, You took money for emergencies that didn't exist. Another neighbor I didn't know, older guy in a red flannel, raised a finger. You checked no conflicts on that form. That's perjury, not management. Melissa's cheeks blotched. You don't understand governance. Then explain, Ms. Carver said, right now, in front of members and county reps. Start with why Trent Property Solutions got sole source work without member approval. Melissa opened her mouth, but nothing came. The lot was silent enough to hear the pool pump whirring behind the clubhouse. She turned to her lawyer. Say something. He hesitated, eyes flicking to the ombudsman. Given the court order, I advise we refrain from detailed comment until records are reviewed. In other words, we can't lie fast enough. Melissa tightened into herself, then snapped her gaze at me. You planned this, bringing officials here. This is a smear. I stepped forward a half step, keeping my voice even. You smudged yourself. We're just finally looking. Her stare jumped past me to Nora. She was holding Elena's hand, cardigan still over her shoulders. Her dress fluttered in the warm night air like a small flag. Melissa's voice lowered, sharp. Your daughter could have avoided all this if you'd cooperated. The sentence hung there, ugly and undeniable. I felt the crowd stiffen. Elena didn't move, just said quietly, Don't you ever put this on her. The ombudsman made a quick note. Ms. Trent, that comment will be included in our report. Melissa flared. Include whatever you want. I'm still president until an election. Actually, Ms. Carver said, stepping closer, tonight's censure triggers Article 4, Section 6. The vice president assumes interim duties pending audit. One of the motions added a recall election for next month. I'll be filing it in the morning. Melissa swung toward her board members. Tell her she's wrong. The taller one looked down at his shoes. The other cleared his throat, then said, barely audible, She's right. It was like watching a beam crack under weight. For a second I thought Melissa might scream. Instead she went frighteningly still, eyes glassy, mouth pressed into a white line. This neighborhood is ungrateful, she said finally. You'll regret letting outsiders meddle. Then she walked to her SUV, got in, and drove out of the lot without looking back. No gravel spray this time, just a retreat. People exhaled all at once. Darius's mom wheeled closer to me, oxygen tubing glinting under the lot lights. You did good, son, she said. I swallowed hard. We did. I looked around at the faces, some angry, some shaken. Most of them awake. The oak sign was visible beyond the parking lot. Welcome home, catching the streetlight. For the first time, it didn't feel like a marketing line. It felt like a promise we'd just taken back. The next 3 weeks were less about shouting and more about watching dominoes fall. The county ombudsman requested records Monday morning. Management, suddenly polite, emailed out a link to a shared drive full of invoices and bids they'd located. Luis called it what it was, damage control. The independent auditor the neighborhood hired was a retired CPA named Harlan Price. He moved through numbers the way I move through framing. Tap, measure, listen for hollow spots. He asked me for my estimating spreadsheet. I gave it gladly. By the end of week 2, his preliminary report was circulating through Cedar Ridge inboxes. Emergency vendor spending had tripled after the 2019 amendment. Trent Property Solutions received 92% of emergency contracts. At least 6 invoices lacked proof of work. No photos, no crew logs, no material receipts. Several storm jobs occurred during clear weather periods. No member vote existed authorizing the amendment. The conflict of interest disclosure was false. People didn't need a translator for that. Melissa stopped driving her SUV down our street. Her lawyer sent a clipped email announcing she would not seek re-election due to health and harassment, trying to fold responsibility into martyrdom. Nobody bought it. The censure stood. The vice president, quiet man named Howard Lee, who'd barely spoken before, assumed interim duties and, to his credit, didn't play games. He froze all emergency categories, opened a comment period on medical accommodations, and scheduled the recall election the bylaws demanded. On election night, the clubhouse filled again, but the air was different. Less fear, more purpose. Nora sat between Elena and me, legs swinging on her chair. She wore the same yellow dress, no cardigan. She'd asked for it that way. Howard read the motions with a steady voice. Vote to remove Melissa Trent from the board, effective immediately. Hands lifted, overwhelmingly yes. A murmur swept the room, not as applause this time, but as release. Like a rubber band snapped off skin. Second vote replaced 2 vacant seats. 2 neighbors who had actually shown up for people, Mrs. Patel and Darius, were nominated. When their names were read, Nora clapped first, loud enough to pull smiles from adults who hadn't smiled enough lately. Afterward, people lingered in the parking lot, talking about normal things, pool hours, a block party, who knew a good plumber, like community was a muscle returning under a cast. Darius wheeled his mom out carefully, her concentrator tucked beside her. He looked lighter than I'd ever seen him. She can't touch you anymore, he said. She shouldn't have been touching anybody, I answered. He nodded. Thanks for not backing down. Thanks for stepping in when it mattered, I said. You changed the ending. He glanced over at Nora. She changed the beginning too. On the drive home, Nora was quiet, watching streetlights slide across the windows. When we parked, she didn't unbuckle right away. Daddy? She said. Yeah, bug? Did I do something bad because of my back? My throat tightened. I turned in my seat. No, you did nothing bad. Your back is proof you're here. People who tried to make you hide were the ones doing bad things. She thought about that, brow wrinkling, then nodded like it clicked into place. Okay, I like my dress. I like it too. Inside, Elena hung the new HOA notice on the fridge. It was simple and human. Medical equipment and dressings are always permitted. Please reach out if you need support. She touched the paper like she didn't quite trust it. We got our neighborhood back, she said softly. Yeah, I said. And Nora gets to grow up seeing what standing up looks like. Later that night, I walked outside alone. The entrance oak stood dark against a sky washed clean by desert wind. The welcome home sign creaked gently, not as a warning now, but as a lullaby for a street that had remembered how to be decent. If you've ever had power aimed at your family like a weapon, you know how lonely that first stand feels. But you also know what it means when neighbors finally stand beside you. If this story hits somewhere close to home, subscribe, because I've got a feeling Cedar Ridge isn't the only place that needs its people to wake up.